Hey, I don't know if y'all saw, but Beyonce is now the face of a global campaign from Levi's called Reimagine. It's pretty dope. Let's talk about it.
Know you wish you were my Levi jeans. Love you down to the bone.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Back again with another episode of Beats and Billboards. And like I said, man, Beyonce is the face of a new global campaign from Levi's called Reimagine. And that's Reimagine with two eyes, by the way. Now, for those who haven't seen the commercial, it opens up on a tight shot of Beyonce in some Levi jeans. Eventually, it zooms out and you see that Beyonce is walking inside of a laundromat. She strips down, she puts her Levi's in the washing machine as the onlookers kind of look on and they're like, oh my God, that's Beyonce, and that kind of thing. Now, the reason this is called Reimagine, and I would imagine the global campaign is called that, is because the ad Laundromat is actually based on a 1985 ad of the same name featuring a guy named Nick Kamen. Now, for those who have never heard of the name Nick Kamen was a model and he was a singer in the UK, right? Very famous guy. And pretty much in his version of Laundromat that they did, he walks in, strips down, puts his stuff in the washing machine, same kind of thing. But you have to remember, this is 1985. It's a different vibe. Seeing that on TV is crazy, right? So this ad was so iconic that according to multiple sources that I was able to read, sales of Levi's, the 501 specifically, shot up by like 800%. So again, you can see how advertising can change and really impact the business. Sales went up by 800% in 1985. And then if you go on YouTube and look at the actual comments of this ad, you'll see people who lived in the UK at the time who were like, oh my God, when this commercial dropped, I immediately went to the store to buy the jeans. But bringing it back to the Beyonce, basically they did that concept over again with her. And I imagine it'll probably have the same effect. Kenneth Mitchell, who's the global CMO over at Levi's, pretty much said that only a third of their customer base is women, and they're hoping to raise that to 50% over time. And an ad like this is sure to do that. Now, for those who are wondering, how did this all come together? How did the queen end up over Levi's? Like, what's going on here? Well, Kenneth Mitchell did a interview with the New York Times, and he pretty much breaks it down. So if y'all remember, and you should remember, everybody should remember, because the Beyonce album is a global event. In March, Beyonce dropped Cowboy Carter, and one of the songs on the album was Levi Jeans featuring Post Malone. Again, with the two eyes. You see the two eyes popping up. So a lot of connective tissue here. But she mentions the brand heavily in her song. So Kenneth says that the first thing that they did was, they appreciated the shout out. So they changed their name to Levi on Instagram with two eyes, right? To take advantage of that moment. But then they went a step further. After that, man, the team just straight out reached out to her. They were like, yo, you trying to do something? And it came together. They ended up shooting this commercial. And if you look, they say that it's chapter one of a bigger part of a global campaign. So as far as what this all means for brands, what are the takeaways? What are some things you can kind of learn from this? Takeaway number one is social agility. Now, if you've never heard of that term, that's a term I was introduced to by my old coworker. Shout out to Ed. And it basically refers to the idea that brands are agile when it comes to being mentioned on social media. So when a brand is getting mentioned, you try to respond in real time, or at least within like a week span, to take advantage of the earned media opportunities that can come with that, right? So in the case of Levi, they were mentioned by Beyonce on Cowboy Carter. I feel like the album might have dropped Tuesday. Let's say it did drop Tuesday. By Friday, the team has already altered their Instagram. They can run news stories about this and pick up that PR value. So now they're getting more traffic to their social media. They're getting more traffic to their website. And it works out for both parties. Beyonce's song gets more press and the brand gets more press. That is social agility in a nutshell. A brand was mentioned by someone in pop culture, in the zeitgeist. They take advantage of that. They run with it and they do it swiftly. You would be surprised how many brands don't have the infrastructure in place to really respond to their mentions on social. Somebody in pop culture mentions them, basically gives them a bunch of earned media impressions, right, across social media because of like a song lyric or something like that. And a lot of times they just either don't respond or they're like, So the first thing I would say for brands is really consider how you can take advantage of moments like this, because then that leads into point number two of building a relationship with the artist and being able to work with them on a long-term, larger scale campaign. So again, social agility and taking that and being able to turn it into something else for your advantage. And lastly, and this is like the biggest takeaway of all, closed mouths don't get fed. Don't be afraid to ask for something. In the New York Times article, Kenneth mentioned that they reached out to Beyonce's team to see if she would want to do something. I think a lot of times brands, especially because of like budget restrictions and things like that, they often feel like they can't afford somebody or somebody may not want to work with them. And honestly, you would be surprised how many, musicians, artists, so on and so forth would say yes if you literally just reached out to them. They're fans too. They're regular people just like everyone else. So naturally, again, closed mouths don't get fed. Don't be afraid to ask someone to work with your brand, no matter how big, their celebrity is. And with that said, there's a bit of a shameless plug here for the kid. Hey, Beyonce, somebody on your team see this? Anybody see this? I got records on deck, man. And I got one or two placements by my name. We should make something happen, at least on the marketing tip, and not on the marketing tip, on the music tip. But with that said, man, back to the episode. This is another episode of Beats and Billboards. This is a very stellar campaign. And I might have said this earlier, but the team said that this is chapter 1. So it's probably going to be a couple more chapters coming out. I wonder if they all feature Beyonce or if not her, another star. But, way to go to the team at Levi's and the creative agency, if there was one involved, for really taking what could have just been a singular moment in March that could have been fly by night and turning it into a campaign that will probably likely eventually lead into some awards going into the top of next year. So remember, social agility, make sure you take advantage of those moments on social to turn them into bigger moments. 2, ask for what you want. Be bold in that. And lastly, actually, final point that I'm thinking about, when it comes to trying to target a new consumer base, you got to be bold in your marketing, man. I think if Levi's was to pick anybody else to try to come at, to increase their female consumer base, it probably would go flat. But man, they got one of the biggest stars on the planet on their side. And who knows actually how much they were even charged for this thing, man. It's so many cool parts to this that we could talk about this for days, but at this point, I'm pretty much rambling. But stellar campaign. It's another episode of Beats and Billboards. B, you see this? Holla at the kid, man. I'm telling you. But I'm rambling. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.